Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions. We're going to finish up this week with a creator request, which is where a band gets in contact with me and asks me to check out their music personally. And I always indulge because this is just one of my favorite parts of the week. We have found some phenomenal music through this program, and I get a chance to help smaller bands get a little bit of boost to their audience, hopefully. Today we're going to be looking at the band Veio. I got an email that says, "Hey Bryan, my name's Chris and I play bass for a band called Veio. Ran across your channel from a React video you did for another Portland-based band, Vintersea, and wanted to reach out about doing a React for video we have coming out on the 18th for our new track, Janice. Some more about us. Again, we're based out of Portland. We've toured with bands such as Seether, Tremonti, Red, Starset, the Veer Union, Alisana, and more. Our first single off of our last album went top 30 on the active rock radio chart, and this track is the first single off an upcoming record. I'm not going to be checking out Janice because, as I've said a few times, I am quite behind. That's better. I'm quite behind on these creator requests, so I decided to check out their newest one now rather than their newest one at the time of the email. This one is called Like Cyanide. So let's see what the band is bringing to the table. Love the dude's mustache. Not music related, but gotta bring it up. Beautiful voice. Lots of energy with the bass and the drums right here. Get a little bit of grit in there, bring the guitar in, raise up the intensity. Really nice vocal harmonies there. I love the little bit of grit he gets on the end of that line. A little bit of a harsh underneath there to support that line. I like how the drums and the bass are doing something similar to the first verse, but the guitar really changes up the vibe of this section. Oh, we have synths here. Have they been there the whole time? Oh, I know what this reminds me of now. little bit of intensity here with the double bass kicks to finish this off. All right, yeah, very cool. Yeah, there's that one part of the chorus right before he says like love like cyanide or something like he says draining the star da 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 da. It reminds me so much of the midsection the mid chorus vocal line from Taproot's poem, I think is what I'm thinking of. Yeah, there's I don't know if it's the progression or if it's like note for note. Don't really matter. But yeah, just the first time I heard the chorus, I was like, man, this is familiar. The second time I was like, oh, the third time it comes around, and I'm like, it's Taproot. Very cool. So, I really like the progression of this track. You know, it's radio rock, right? There's going to be a lot of stuff here that I kind of reiterate from a lot of radio rock reactions. I don't want to be, I don't want this to sound overly negative or anything like this. Like I've said many times before, there's a reason that these ideas are utilized so often and they're tried and true. They work very well. It's all about how you can put your spin on them, which is the entire point of iterative bands, which is really taking something that has worked really well in the past and putting your twist on it, putting your stamp on it. Um, so, you know, our song structure is verse, chorus, bridge, chorus. You know, we're looking at smaller verses, bigger choruses. We're looking at hooks, vocal hooks that are the melody of the tracks that remind me of other tracks. You know, there's a lot of concepts here that are just going to be very general terms for a lot of radio rock music, but it doesn't, I don't say it to diminish the band at all. Really just to cement what they're doing and showcase how they're being an iterative band and expanding a little bit on those that have come before them. So, with that said, though, we have our verse, chorus, bridge, chorus. And something I really enjoyed here is the use of dynamic qualities in the two verses and in our final chorus to change up a little bit of the flow. Specifically looking at our two verses, our first verse comes in with we start off the song with a bit of intensity and we back it down a little bit, and it's mostly drum and bass here with our vocal sitting on top. And I was kind of figuring that this was going to be what we saw throughout all the verses. It provides a nice lower point after hitting our mid to high point there at the beginning, which is pretty typical for modern mainstream music, is to start with your catchy stuff and then dig into it later, and having the chorus's music in our intro as well as showcasing a few of the electronic synthy things as well. It's just a really great way to bring the song in if your intent is to capture an audience's attention. We get into the verse though. We bring it down a little bit. Drums, bass, heavily rhythmic. The drums don't have pitches to them traditionally, and the bass is really sitting on just one or two notes, bouncing around them alongside the drums rhythm to have this really syncopated groove underneath our vocals. It really creates more of a sparse sound, which is designed to be in stark contrast to our opening, while also providing a nice balance between the higher range of our vocalist and providing this floor for them to sing over. From here, we move into the chorus, which is the big part. It's the hook. It's what you were supposed to remember when you leave the song. And sure enough, I've got that hook stuck into me. I very clearly remember the chorus. Catchy melody line from the vocals. Like I said, they kind of remind me of another song I'm a huge fan of, which is definitely something you. I don't know if it's definitely something. It's definitely bonus points if your intent is to gain an audience. I think. I guess it can kind of go both ways where somebody's like, oh, I've heard this before, but another chance is, oh, I like this. It reminds me of stuff I enjoy. So I actually don't know what the stats are on how effective it is to sound like somebody. And I'm not saying that they specifically went out of their way to mimic or emulate that other song. Like I said, a lot of radio rock just follows traditions. They follow, I don't want to say templates, but similar compositional ideas. So you're going to end up with songs that sound familiar, and it could have even just been, I mean, it could have been completely coincidental, but it also could just be influential. Maybe the vocalist loved Taproot and they're, sang along with them, and that musical influence just came into how they compose. It's not a intentional thing of, oh, I'm going to make this line. It's just what feels natural to them because of what they sang along to a lot in their youth or whatever. Or, like I said, could just be completely coincidental. Regardless, strong hook right here that I think is really effective, and everybody else is there to support the music. And that's kind of the vibe with the entire track. I don't really think there's a moment in here where the music stands on its own outside of being a supportive track for the vocals. Our guitar does chord progressions, our bass follows along with those chord progressions, our drum does rhythms. All of it is set there so the vocals can sing. And the vocals never stop singing. We have our intro, that's it. And then we have little moments at the end in our outro. But other than that, our vocals are verse, chorus, chorus, straight into the bridge. There might be like a 1 bar or 2 bar break. That is it. It's a very short amount of time before we get into the vocal aspect of the bridge, and that leads us directly into our outro chorus. There's so little time that the vocals are not going on here, which, for better or worse, completely, depends on who's listening, what kind of biases you have. I bounce back and forth. I like songs that are hugely instrumental with sparse vocalization. I love radio rock tracks like this that are just vocals all the way through. Two of my top bands, or two of my top albums ever, one's on one end, one's on the other end. So, I'm fine with both of them, but I can see where biases can come into play here if you enjoy that or not. But it's certainly something at play here. There's very little time for the instruments to do anything other than support the vocals. We get up to the second verse though, and we have a new idea here, which is our guitar riff, which is going to come back later on. This is the only time the guitar is doing anything rhythmic, but it's also not doing anything melodic. Once again, it's designed to support the melody of the vocals. If the guitar was doing something melodic here, it'd be providing counterpoint, which, again, depending on what your goals are, could be counter to what your music is intended to do. So it works well for what it's doing here, which is providing a rhythmic groove, just like the bass was in the first verse, that has your listeners kind of headbanging along, but it's more intense than our first verse, which is more subdued and a little bit more vulnerable, as there just wasn't a lot going on musically. So it's a way to increase the intensity, increase the rockiness of it, to make it a more rockin' song. It's terrible. While also not interfering with the melodic component at all, just really digging into that rhythmic aspect. We go back into the chorus. Like I said, from this chorus, though, we move straight into the bridge. There is just no stop, which I thought was really interesting. At first, I thought it was a post chorus, but no. Musically, we shifted a little bit. All the roles stayed the same. Our guitar continued to do chordal stuff, our bass continued to sit along with those chords, and our drum continued to drum. But it opened up a little bit. I noticed synthesizers here, which I hadn't noticed prior except for the intro. And maybe that was my fault. Maybe they weren't there. I don't know. But this was the first time that they really stood out to me. And I thought it was interesting to have this wider sound sit around the band. But ultimately, I'm kind of curious musically what the point is. I mean, it's extra texture, which I guess is what radio rock really needs, but we have a doubling up of ideas that's kind of already tripling up of ideas. Our bass and our guitar are both kind of following chordal patterns, and then we just put more chords around it with different texture. And like I said, maybe the texture is the purpose of it. I don't think it's bad. At that point, I thought it was really neat, and I enjoyed hearing something new. But I also think that this could have been a really strong moment for other components other tools to be utilized. And maybe that's just me. Again, this is radio rock, and I'm sure that there's specific things that this style of genre should utilize most in order to gain a following, because technical radio rock doesn't really exist. Um, there's only so many songs I've heard on the radio that go for a technical edge and stay on the radio. Usually it's those flavor of the month things where they might be on the radio then, but you check back 6 months from now and you might listen to the radio 24 hours a day for the entire month and never even hear the band again. So yeah, like I said, I would have suggestions on what to do there, but it would fundamentally change the style of the music. And it's quite possible that that's not the band's vision, it's not the goal of the song, etc., etc. Like I talk about often when we come to stuff like this is a music video, which means it's probably a single, which means it's designed to bring in new audience, which means that it should probably aim specifically for that marketing reason or that marketing aspect, which means you really should distill it down into what you think is going to attract the most people. So there is a business aspect that could come into the musical creation here. But I was, completely subjective here. My bias. I was a little disappointed to hear a new sound and it just to do what we've already heard all of our melodic pitched instruments do this entire time. So that was a little disheartening. We get into the final chorus though, and it is, I really want to use the word cliche, but I think just tried and true. It's a formula that works. You come in with a very subdued concept. Sometimes they might hyper compress the vocals and just do no instrumentation. Sometimes just the drums. Here we had the vocals and the synthesizer, I think. And then at the halfway point, you have some sort of staccato moment of boominess. Here we had the da 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 da, and we come back in full volume, full power to finish out the second half of the chorus. It works, right? It is a big major moment. It's very anthemic at times, and I think it works well for that reason. Um, was I expecting it? Yes. Did it deliver? Yes. So, I mean, sometimes hitting my expectations is exactly what I want. If I'm in the mood for this, I really want it to do exactly what I'm expecting it to do. And I think it completely delivers on that mark of being a really strong radio rock song that has some catchy ideas and is something I can headbang along to without really having to think too much about. And I think the song does a fantastic job of doing that while also including a little bit of variety here and there, like the two verses being different and our third chorus having a different opening, different first half. It all comes together real well. And then, of course, at the end, we bring back the second verse's guitar idea. In fact, I think all three instruments go back to the second verse sound because it's their most driving one. And then we get to reiterate the final, well, we get to reiterate the name of the song over and over and over, hoping to hook that into the listener's ears. It is a phenomenally well put track if the intention is to bring in more audience, especially if their music is like this. It is, if I had to guess, this would probably be one of the simpler songs on the album. But like I said, it's the one that's designed to bring in an audience so that people do pick up the album. So yeah, like I said, not exactly my cup of tea. I tend to prefer a little bit more technicality to music, but if I listened, if this was on the radio and I'm just driving down the road, I'm going to jam along to it. It's a phenomenal job at doing what it does. And I think that's something that a lot of people should probably think about more when they're looking at music, especially music that fits more into the mainstream, is not necessarily if you like it or not, but what is its goal and is it achieving them? And I think this song is. Dive into the lyrics real quick, and then we'll head out here. Oh, short bit of lyrics. Dizzy and lost in revelation, a dialogue outside of time, gripping the unbroken cipher. In the afterglow, so much composure, heading toward a desolate demise. Then we hit the chorus. The pain inside my weary eyes pulls like an undertow. The strain inside your great divide, draining the weight of my soul. With a love like cyanide. I told you, man, it's stuck in my head. It's stuck in my head. um, so yeah, I think this chorus kind of sums everything up. There's a pain inside that is uh, basically being in a toxic relationship. And there's a great divide, it says. It could possibly be that this person does care for this other person, but they understand that the relationship is not positive for them. And this is them sitting in a schism, uh, having their soul being drained, but kind of enjoying it, I suppose. Overcome with frantic fervor, an interchange outside my mind, distressing me a harsh betrayal. In the afterglow, so much for closure, I'm fighting through. Back to the chorus. And I know as the daylight fades, the message is ours to lose. If we stagger toward the light, we find that death can't obscure the truth. Huh. Interesting to bring in, because the bridge almost makes it sound like there's a revelation that maybe if we move to the light, we could address this. As the daylight fades, the message is ours to lose. So yeah, if we actually brought this to light, this toxic relationship, we might be able to fix it. But instead, we find that death can't obscure the truth. I don't know. Interesting way to go about that. Maybe I'm missing something here. But yeah, so it's definitely, at least to my understanding, about a toxic relationship of some sort, but still caring about the other person. So kind of torn of whether I should stay or should I go. And how that relates to the music, I don't really feel that there's any strong thematic connection in the music that would tie back to it, but that's typical of more mainstream music, where the artists create the music they want to make and then the lyricist makes the lyrics they want to make and they put them together, rather than either the song or the lyrics being crafted for the other so that themes can line up and support each other. And I do want to reiterate one final time, there is no right or wrong way to make music, right? I do really enjoy when themes really cohese and support each other, but that's not the only way to make music. And making something like this is just fine as long as these people enjoy what they're doing and as long as their goals are being met. And I believe that they are enjoying the music they're making and they are creating music they want to make with their goals in mind. So, with that said, who am I to tell them that they did anything wrong? So those are my thoughts on Veio's Like Cyanide. Um, Chris, was it, I think, the bassist? Yes, Chris, or anybody else from the band, if you happen to be commenting here. How do I pronounce your name? I don't know if Veio is exactly what my first gut reaction is to pronounce it, but if I pronounce the E as a long E rather than like a rock style A, is really VIO, VEO. None of that really works, and Veio doesn't really roll off the tongue either. So I'm kind of interested how you guys pronounce the name of your band, just in case I'm doing it wrong. All right, so let me know what your guys' thoughts are on Veio's Like Cyanide. Hit me up in the comments. Let me know if you enjoyed it or not, anything that stood out to you or anything like that. Above the comment section is going to be a description box in there. Instead of my usual stuff, there's going to be links for Veio, how to get to the rest of their music, their social medias, uh, their streaming platform links, all of that. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell on my video. And if you wouldn't mind, head over to theirs and at least like it. At least get a view over there. I'm not telling you got to subscribe to somebody, but, just give them a little bit of boost in the algorithm. That's always nice. All right, until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening whenever you choose to watch my videos.